Okay. Um, it is December 17th, and this is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board, a consolidated hearing with the tree warden designee to discuss the National Grid removal of hazardous trees. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that this may be a long meeting, and I want to apologize in advance and explain why.
Okay.
Public shade trees are a public asset, and as a planning board member, I take seriously my responsibility to remove a public asset. Therefore, I need to have a clear understanding of why a tree is slated to be removed. The town has a tree policy that was adopted by the select board. And it addressed the need for planning board members and select board members to have their questions answered prior to a hearing. And it required that the planning board and select board members are notified when the town's arborist consultant is going to view the trees. So if we have any questions, we can get them answered at that time. But for some inexplicable reason, that part of the policy has been ignored. And it had been done in the past, and hearings had been run very smoothly and very quickly. But recently that we haven't been given that opportunity. So the only opportunity to have our questions answered is here at a hearing. And without being at a tree, it's difficult to understand why a town asset needs to be removed. So moving forward, I would hope that there is a resolution to this issue, which will allow for more productive hearings.
Okay. So the process then typically, or the way I'm understanding it, I guess, is that our arborist would look at the trees, assess them, and then, from what I understand, Chris, if this is the way the process works, yourself as well as the third-party town arborist looks at the trees as well, and then the planning board has a chance to have questions answered before this hearing. Is that correct? Is that how it's supposed to work?
Well, how it has worked in the past is when the town's consultant arborist is going to go out, there's just a notification given to the planning board members. And if they can join him, fine. If they can't, too bad. He doesn't have to schedule with us. But that we have done that before and have had very productive conversations, and I've gotten a lot of questions answered through that process that don't have to be discussed at a hearing.
Okay. Well, I can't
think
speak
too, with a list of this scope, he went at it at his own pace. He doesn't have like a rigid, schedule. So I think that might have been part of the disconnect this time around. So just the way he works, he's not really a traditional schedule that he works. He gets the list and then he goes at it at his own pace. That's something that we haven't done before, but he's getting older, and it's tough for him to schedule things. He doesn't really work like that. So that's part of the disconnect, I think, this time.
Okay. So I think we need to figure out a way to have our questions answered ahead of time, so we don't have, we'll see how this goes, but don't have really long, arduous meetings.
Okay.
I think one thing that I would ask that you speak to before we get started is the white pines white pines as street trees, because I know there are a ton of them on Parkerville that are slated for removal, and they don't all look dead or diseased, but I think they have their own unique issues, if you speak to that.
Sure. You know, myself, I'm a ISA certified arborist as well as a Massachusetts certified arborist. So I'm coming from a place of knowledge here, and I've also dealt with the utility side of the business now for this will be my 5th year in the utility side of the business, and then 18 years in the tree industry before that. Historically, white pines typically are softwood, weak wood trees. And unfortunately, when they're along streets and especially over 3-phase power lines and open 3-phase power lines, the issue we have is that when they get snow loads on them or they have narrow crotches, they tend to fail rather dramatically. And also in high winds, anything over, 50 miles an hour, 40, 50 miles an hour, the tops can tend to come out of white pines as well. They're just not a real rigid, strong wooded tree, unfortunately. They do have a high failure rate in storm conditions. That being said, if we look at the conditions in here, there's a lot of decline in these particular white pines here. I know that there is dieback on these particular white pines. We see there's wounds on the trunks, and I believe there was wounds on the base of these white pines. So when you couple the existing weak infrastructure of a white pine to begin with, and then half of the tree is in decline because of wounds on the base of the trunk. I believe this was due to some construction or plow damage. Again, being along the edge of the street, they are relatively prone to getting scuffed up and beat up pretty easily. They don't develop the thickest callus wound wood, so they have trouble healing really big wounds. So that's why we're seeking the removal on those pines, is because historically we've seen those fail more dramatically in a power line situation. And when I say more dramatically, it means rather than just branches shedding off, we see either the top of the tree come out or the entire tree itself fail. So what does that mean in a utility setting? It means rather than just taking the lines down and the power being out for a matter of 6 to 8 hours while a crew can get out there, or if it's a bad storm, it could be a day. If a whole tree comes down on lines and it takes that can actually snap the telephone poles in half, and then you could be looking at a multiple day outage. So we're trying to prevent those sort of things from happening. And that's why you're seeing that number of white pines on this particular list, is because those particular white pines are in fairly poor health, just based on their proximity to the road. They're getting exposed to a lot of road salt and damage, I'm sure from snow plowing and road work. And that's, I'm sure, why we're seeing the decline in those white pines along Parkerville Road. And that's why we're seeking the removal there.
Jeff, if I may add to that.
Sure.
So I'm the one who looked at the trees. I also knew Southborough was very conscientious about their trees as well. Also knowing the effects of pine trees
Don,
on
can you
power lines
introduce
and
yourself?
safety. Huh?
Don, can you introduce yourself?
Okay. So I'm Don Crocker. I'm a certified arborist with ISA, Mass Certified Arborist, Mass Certified Pesticide Applicator. I've been involved in arboriculture for more than 40 years. I've been on the hazard tree program for more than 7 years. And A lot of, my knowledge has been from just actual field experience. Majority of my career has been about plant healthcare. So, I've gotten to see a lot of, unusual stuff out there. As the trees I've seen the trees grow from saplings to full-size trees in various areas and stuff.
Thank you.
So I assessed the 2 circuits we're having the hearing about. And I did my due diligence. As a contractor for National Grid, my job is to go out, find trees that could potentially be a problem with the power lines. Parkerville Road was a particular problem because it's Hendrix cable, and with all these 80 to 90 foot high pine trees, the potential of them snapping, coming down and causing power outage, we're looking at potential of taking out half a dozen poles at a time with the right storm. There was one that did break, probably about 15-20 feet off the ground. Came down to talking to the residents of the road. They were out of power for a while, and a lot of the residents were very concerned about the pines. Matter of fact, everybody who had pine trees in front of their properties all signed off on they would like to see them gone because their concerns of the safety. And I was looking very carefully at issues I could find on the trees. A lot of stuff I'll see that others won't see, and always glad to point it out to people that I can see. But it's also knowing what kind of issues come about, with pine trees. Those trees, there's a lot of decline. There's a lot of disease out there right now, and it's hard to tell, but you could virtually see. I wouldn't be surprised, seeing some of those trees dying naturally, over the next few years itself.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Houlihan.
Oh, thank you. Just a question. When you, and it was both Jeffrey and Don, so thank you both for joining us, and Chris. When you speak to decline, can you just define that from an arborist perspective, relative to those white pines? When you say there's decline, what does that mean for a lay person?
So a lot of it is like, it's a visual thing. I know from experience what a white pine is supposed to look like when it's healthy. And when I see like needles yellowing, the crown of the tree is sparse. In some cases, some of those trees have like less than 20% of a crown. And being evergreens, they need to be full in order to, because unlike a maple or an oak that produces all this energy during the summer while it's got leaves on it and stores it in the wintertime, evergreens don't. And so they need those needles because they don't have the energy to put out new needles in the spring. They do cast needles on a regular basis, but then you'll find casting later in the spring into the summer, which is a sign of what we call pine needle disease, and which is really any number of 5 different types of viruses or fungus that are affecting the needles of the tree. Other things is looking at is old branch scars, which branches are broken off or even cut off, and seeing the wood inside decaying. Looking at the bases, looking for cavities, there are a couple trees where right at the base, if you push against the bark, you can feel the bark kind of soft. And that's because that's an indication that there's, decay underneath the trunk. So everybody's gonna remember that the heartwood of the tree, the middle of it is the backbone. So, if you imagine that is all rotted out, that makes the tree weaker into it. And with pine trees, because that's the other problem with them, particularly in the wintertime, with all the deciduous trees lost all the leaves, that makes them more vulnerable to wind. Especially pines tend to be taller than most trees out there, and the tops of the trees are crowns, and when the wind's blowing, they sway back and forth. So imagine if you take a matchstick and you push on the head of that matchstick and it snaps. It's a similar idea when you got especially gusty winds. But pine trees are designed to grow in a forest. They support each other. So they all sway with the wind, they all protect each other from being blown out. Those trees are planted as ornamentals, and they have no protection against each other. And a lot of them did show a lot of various signs of decay. And I wouldn't be surprised that, if the trees are cut down, seeing more decay inside the trunk itself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on pines as street trees?
So I
Yes,
have a kind of an initial question, just about process. On the form, it says TW design designee comments and town arborist comments. Is Mr. Leroy both the tree warden designee and the town arborist?
No,
Okay, who's the town arborist? And are they here?
they aren't. Cliff Templeman.
Okay. So, Chris, how does this work? Do you generally just defer to the town arborist, or because it doesn't seem like there's very much, disagreement. I can't really tell from the form, what the analysis was.
So in this case, we both went out independently. Like I said, I'll just refer to him as Cliff. Cliff took the list and went on his own. I think he had it for about 6 weeks.
Okay, and that was the gentleman you were referring to earlier who works on his own schedule?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And so then I go out on my own, and 9 times out of 10, when we come back together, we agree because we're both seeing the same thing, through National Grid's arborist notes, what I observe, what I know from history of these trees, just from when we're out there on the roads, cleaning up fallen branches, some of these trees coming apart, in storms over the years, and just using all that information to put my thoughts together. He does his independently, and then we do get together at the end, because if I have a question or if I think he hasn't looked at the correct tree, we just come together and just, talk at the end and compare notes.
So, Mimi, were you just about to now get into, I guess, page 3, which is all the oaks on Parkerville?
So how I thought I would organize was I have different buckets. Like I thought we could talk about the trims. If everyone's in agreement with the trees to be trimmed, we could at least get those out of the way. And then I have a list of things that I agree with the removal of. Go through that, see if we can get that out of the way, and then go to all the questions.
Okay.
The trees that board members question. That's how I
Okay,
thought.
it seemed like you were kind of, looking or just going along with the discussion of the pines on Parkerville specifically?
Oh, so the reason I started with that is that there are a lot of pines on Parkerville, and we've received questions on why are so many of the pine trees being removed. And I thought it would be good to have an understanding of whether pine trees make good street trees or not. And I'm not an arborist, but I had a lot of pines in my backyard, and some I had removed because they drop huge limbs, and it terrified me that they were gonna go through my roof. So I understand. And also when Lisa and I went out and looked at the trees, when homeowners who had pine trees in front of their houses saw us, they came running out and said, please, please take these down. I'm afraid of them. Some of them, like right up at the beginning of Parkerville, are very, very close to the house, and the homeowners there have had huge limbs, like crushing cars, and they're, if one of those topples over, their house is gone. So I just
So
thought
is
it
it
would be good to understand pines as street trees to start with.
So is it safe to say that numbers 1 through 9, you're in agreement with all, the three, if we consider the three entities, National Grid, the designee, and the town arborist, they're all in agreement on numbers 1 through 9.
Yeah, well, a couple, so 8 and 9 are trims. So I thought
Right.
if we're gonna have a move to a vote, we're gonna have to have trim and removes separately.
Okay. So would it be appropriate then for a motion for numbers 1 through 7?
Well, so Debbie has her hand up, so
Okay.
before we start,
Yep. I'm going on mute.
Mr. Maria.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions, and then I have a couple of slides. So Mimi, would it be okay if I just ask the couple of questions and show the slides? I'll try not to take too much time.
Sure.
So I noticed that that this list of trees is just certain circuits that you were doing, and this circuit was part of the vegetative management plan for the 24-25. But in that, I think over the years, we've asked National Grid, if I have this correct, if you have an annual, I think, hazard tree plan. And I don't believe we have that from you. And I just want to confirm that I have that correct.
That's something I can't answer. That's with the regional forester that manages the power lines for that area, which now is out of the Lemonster office. Hazard tree is a separate department from that. We don't have an annual program. It's we get called in when the circuit is performing badly, meaning there's a lot of outages. And then they have us go assess certain parts of that circuit, looking for trees that potentially could cause more outages. Obviously, we can't always get them all. And we're only looking at the 3-phase line. That's what the program is designed to attack. It's very effective. It's reduced outages considering that those 3-phase lines feed a lot more of the line itself, of the property or the town. So those are the primary lines coming out of the substation.
Okay.
The other stuff you're talking about, the regular maintenance and all that, as far as I know, there's a schedule, but it's not an annual thing. It's like circuits are put on a cycle of 4 or 5 or 6 year cycles. And I don't have the information on what the cycle is for those circuits.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So I know a couple of things. Some of the neighbors have come forward and they were asked to sign something called a hazard tree mitigation program. And actually your name is on it. And
Correct.
so, for me, some of these trees came up as a surprise. And I thought, well, we should be notified in advance. If you've got like these trees just didn't come out of nowhere, right? So if you're looking at the trees and you're out there trimming and you see them and you say, oh, you know, that's one next year we're gonna have to do something about that tree or something like that. That would be really helpful. And I'm just letting you know
That-
that some of the neighbors were notified of something that said hazard tree mitigation way in advance of us being given this list. So I did want to ask you, I mean, essentially you're getting their signature that it's okay to trim or prune or maybe even remove a tree before you get planning board agreement, if I understand
Well,
correctly.
So this is our process. We get notified from National Grid Asset that this circuit is performing badly. We need to do something more than the routine maintenance that's done on the road, on the lines. So they send hazard tree in. It's not because, you know, the trimming went through and they saw a tree or all these trees. This assessment done by hazard tree, we're totally separate from the regular maintenance part of it. So we go in and we identify the trees. We're looking not just for town trees, we're also looking for private trees. We're looking at anything that could potentially be a problem with the power lines. And most of our work follows the roads. So not only is it a problem with the power, you know, safety factor with the power lines, it's also a safety factor for the public. Now, we do contact anybody, any abutters, you know, whether it's a private tree to get authorization for their private trees or a town trees, it's more or less to let them know what we want to do, see if they're okay with it. And because, you know, it takes time to gather all the information, get all the stuff together, you know, I can't be, you know, going doing one tree, then go have a hearing for the tree and, you know, back and forth. We gather all the information and at the end, we put it together to, you know, we present it, usually, you know, start with the tree warden as our contact. And then he lets us or she lets us know what the town procedures are to, you know, that the town requires us to do a hearing or, you know, whatever, you know, they want from us. And then from that, we plan it. So we've been working on this hearing since June, trying to get it all planned out, get it all set up and stuff. And we've gone back and forth on it, and some of the trees, because there were conservation trees, were taken off the list and put on the conservation for a hearing that we had with them. Some of the trees, I believe Chris had signed off because they were dead trees and had the authority to do so. And then now we're here with this list of trees that remain from the original list to go through and, you know, have this hearing for it. So, and then, you know, we follow the procedures.
Hey,
We don't
Don,
do anything without, you know, authorization from all parties necessary.
That's helpful. Thank you. I
is
just want to
it-
show you something. I took the time to go back and take a look at the historic power outages, which is on the Department of Energy website. It's accessible to the public and it's in an area called the file room. And I understand that National Grid files their reports after an outage. And what I wanted to do is take a look, from my understanding, put together sort of this table because like others, and we've heard from a lot of neighbors that were really very stunned at the number of trees that, you know, are on some roads, you know, in particular Woodland and Parkerville. So looking only at the circuits that you were doing, and I know these are the circuits from the Vegetative Management Plan annual. This is plan approval for fiscal year 25, I think, which was April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. So these were the circuits. And all I did was take these data down and I looked at significant power outages and insignificant power outages. And I read the reasons and whether they were tree related or not tree related. And there might be a road on here because there was an adjustment from your earlier list, which had 114 trees, I think, or something like that.
Yes.
And now
Yeah.
we're at 94. So what I just want to show you is that, you know, just Parkerville, and if you just take Parkerville and Woodland, for example, because those are the heaviest, you know, requests are coming in on those roads. And look at Parkerville. So in 2023, there were 2 significant power outages, but I believe it was a double report. And I'm not going to be able to understand it exactly, but I think it went over to a different substation, so it was double reported. But only one of those was considered tree related, and the same on the you know, you can see for insignificant as well. Now we know one of those pines snapped off, and toward the lower end of the numbers on Parkerville, and we've heard from many neighbors about the pine trees, and many neighbors are very afraid of those pine trees. So I understand that that was a pine tree, but that I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to look at that number that you're requesting now, 46 trees coming from one street alone, and you've had one major power outage, you know, in each year. I don't know what sort of the you know, the benefit risk is, but to me it seems excessive. I don't believe all of those are pines. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out. But even on Woodland, for example, where you're asking for 18 removals, again, there were you know, 2 major significant power outages, but only one was tree related. Others that you report have to do with equipment failure or animals or some unknown reason. And then, you know, even some of the other trees, there's years, the streets rather, there's years that there are 0 tree related. And, you know, I'm going to bring up Flag and Lovers because that seems to be a frequent target. Almost every tree hearing that we've had, not just National Grid, but, you know, National Grid as well, we always get trees on Flag and Lovers. And I've been on the planning board for almost 3 years, and I think every single tree hearing has had trees on Flag and Lovers, and some of these have been marked this is their 3rd time. So that I think we really do need a process that if we already hear a tree for one reason or another, you know, we shouldn't really be hearing it again. But just to take a look, Lovers had 0 significant power outages, and yet you're requesting 12 trees. So I really want to give you the opportunity, and some of those might be trimmed, but actually I'm not sure how many. I'd have to look. But I want to give you the opportunity to speak to that, because that really seems like an excessive number of trees for 0 outages, especially looking at you know, year over year on Lovers. I want to ask you about that, and I want to ask you about some of the trees that are on your list are not even near a power line. They may have a large branch. They might be hanging in the street, but they're not on the side of the road with the power line. And so I give you the opportunity to speak about those 2 things.
Well, as for the circuit, I'm assigned it by my boss.
Hey, Don, can I address
Yeah.
this spreadsheet real quick?
Go ahead.
And I might have made an error, so if you catch an error, let me know, but I did the best I could.
All right, with regards to this spreadsheet, I have a couple of things here. I don't know that these numbers are 100% accurate.
But this is on the state's data. I mean, you
Okay.
report to them. Yeah.
And let's just go with this and say that these numbers are accurate. There's a couple of things here there's some data here that's missing, is the duration of the outages, the quantity of the customers that's affected. It might be one outage, but is it an outage for a day? Is it an outage for a week? And does it affect 3 customers? Does it affect 3,000 customers? Are there customers on that line that are on life support equipment? Those are all kinds of questions that need to be asked, okay, when we're looking at this sort of data. The other side of this is when we look at tree counts and we look at numbers like 46 and 18 and 12. 46, is it 46 out of how many street trees are on that road, Parkerville Road? 46, is it we don't know if 46 is a lot of trees or not. Is it 46 trees out of 500? Is it 46 trees out of 1,000? Is it 46 trees out of 48 trees? So that's why when this particular spreadsheet, I feel doesn't provide a great deal of enough information to make that kind of decision from.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just show another slide, but just to mention that I thought you were going to say because Parkerville and Woodland, I believe that the substation, when the tree went down on Parkerville, it was somehow there was another substation that was able to come on board. And that's, I believe, what the double reporting was about. That I don't really understand. But from my perspective, these numbers are too small to really justify the number of trees. I mean,
Okay.
I'm one vote tonight. But we've
So-
heard from many, many people who have said, yes, they're afraid, especially the pine trees. That's a
Sure.
real problem that we have to tackle. But others that say, these trees just keep getting put on the list year after year, and we keep saying no.
Sure. So there's the other side of this, which is that our place as National Grid really isn't to sit and explain at this point why we've done we've gone through and we've done a hazardous tree assessment. We've looked at all the trees that could have impact our infrastructure. You've had your tree warden now go out and assess them at this point. Your third party arborist has also gone out and assessed these trees. And with the exception of 4 removals they agreed to change, that, they wanted to change to trims, they were all in agreement with our arborists. So 3 different arborists have looked at all these trees and deemed them hazardous at this point. What the town of Southborough wants to do with this information at this point is completely up to the town of Southborough. So if they don't want to take any of these trees down, it's completely within the town's right. The Board of Selectmen would have to vote on that and say, no, we don't want to do this work. And that would be fine. We just won't do any of it. But that's a discussion for the town of Southborough to have.
Okay, I just want to show you the next slide. I appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah.
And the next slide is just a breakdown of the trees. I mean, these are some of the largest trees on the north side of town, north and south side of town, to be
Sure.
honest. So I just took a look at some of these trees. With every tree, there's something wrong with every tree. It doesn't grow straight. It's not perfect. It has a split. There's a raccoon living in it.
Mhm.
We know that. But I, as one member of the planning board, am very afraid that we're losing our tree canopy, and that by taking down so many trees and just saying, well, this is inconvenient, we need to just get this down, that it makes the other trees unstable. But one way to look at this, and this is how many towns think about this with their scenic roads. And by the way, I believe every road is a scenic road on your list, is how many trees are on the list, total, and how many removed. Only, in my opinion, there were not as many trims as I would have liked. And actually you see, and this may be for something for Chris to opine on later, but where Chris and the arborist, disagreed with you was some areas where they said, no, well, why don't we try trimming it instead? But just take a look at the number of trees that are, I think anything over 24 inches is what towns typically look at in terms of, these are trees that they're going to be very difficult to replace if you're doing an inch for inch replacement. And we might not see them, in our lifetime, in our lives living here in Southborough. But take a look at the 30 to 40 inch trees. Those are the ones that are probably the most problematic. They're the ones that you really want to take down because, they're in the way, they're on the corner, they've been hit. All kinds of things going on. But I look at this in a completely opposite way. These are the ones that really, really need protection. So I just wanted to show you this because you've got 60% of trees that are over between 20 and 40 inches. So you have really picked the largest trees. Not to mention, I went out and there's a fair number of scraggly trees that are dead that didn't make your list. And that I would have liked to have seen on your list. But obviously I understand they didn't reach the wires. So I wanted to just share that this is maybe a perspective of how we think, or at least I think about public shade trees and the protections that they need. I did find that your, this will be my last comment.
Sure.
The explanation that's given on some of these trees, especially the ones that are across the street. So, this is leaning, it's got a big lean. I am just telling you what, right now, I'm going to vote no on that because it's across the street. It's not near a wire, and you didn't convince me, on most of these that's going to interfere with the wires. And so, maybe next time we need like a bigger explanation in that regard. But I wanted to just share this with you, and I thank you for your thoughts too.
Sure. Yep. Yep, that's fine. But like I said, it's completely up to the town of Southborough what they want to do with this list. We've had 3 independent experts in the field look at all these trees, and this is the assessment that they've made with these trees. So kind of the ball is in your court at this point, as
Okay.
far as how
Thank
you want to
you.
move forward.
Colleen, there are a couple of residents that have their hands raised. I think we'll get those questions asked and then move on to voting.
Go ahead, Terry. Hello? Can you hear
Hello.
me? Hi.
Yes, if you could identify yourself and your address, please.
Yes, of course. I'm Terry Robbins, and I live at 39 Parkerville Road. My husband and I have lived here for over 40 years and love the town. I've long admired a very, very old, it might be the oldest tree on Parkerville, certainly one of the biggest, with a radius or circumference rather of at least 45 inches, that I've had special love for and concern about. And just quickly now, several years ago, they wanted to cut it down. I saw the men with the cutting device coming down Parkerville, and I asked them why they were cutting this gorgeous tree down. Incidentally, I believe the tree I'm referring to is number 38. At any rate, the gentleman was very nice. He said, well, it's 4 PM. We aren't going to be taking it down today. And he said, I used to work for Foxborough, a tree cutter down there. Why don't you call them and hire your own arborist to come up here and look at your tree? So I called. I was told, now this was what, 5 years ago? It would cost $200. And I was ready. I thought, okay, that's worth it. But the next thing I knew is my husband got a call at 7 AM the next morning. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was the arborist for Southborough, who assured Chris and me that they were just going to trim. They were not going to cut this tree down. So the tree had a reprieve. And I own the fact that there is a hole in it. I'm not trying to hide anything from you. You can stick a stick in there and it goes right through. But that tree is special. It's different from all the others. It's older, it's bigger. And if any tree on Parkerville Road should be saved, it should be that tree. And my grandson wanted to just say a quick word.
Elma was also saying one of her stronger arguments is that it is on Wampanoag indigenous land, and the tree is also should belong to Wampanoag Native American plants because we believe it was planted there by Native Americans.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Sean?
Evening, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sean Rose. I'm the owner of Three Lovers Lane. I'd like to say one of the trees for Lovers Lane has been marked is on my property. And I think some of the slides and everything missed out is what is the potential hazard or what's the probability of that tree causing a power outage? So I spoke with Don and some other people when they were assessing this, and I agree with them that my tree's a hazard and it needs to be removed, right? Every time I have a storm, limbs come down from this tree. Luckily, they haven't caused a power outage, but it's only a matter of time before one of those limbs hits the line and maybe takes out my street, you know? So as a homeowner, like I'm in agreement for my tree, right? For that. And I think that's something that's missing from that data, even though a small percentage of the power outage may be from trees, but what is the potential of that tree to cause a big outage? Like I remember, I think it was last winter where one of them fell on Deerfoot and took out the whole neighborhood for, you know, a day and a half. So it's like, hey, as a homeowner, like I want my power uptime to be, you know, 99.9999%. So, you know, so for my justification on my tree, you know, I hope you guys vote yes, because I want it taken down, but.
Sean, do you know what number tree that is on the list by any chance?
I do not know at this second. I can find out, but I don't
Okay.
have it in front of me. Sorry. It's on the corner of Lovers and Flag.
You wouldn't know what tree that is, Chris, would you?
It's
No.
108.
108?
I believe that's it. Yeah, no. It's a maple. Let me here. I don't see it on the list. Please.
Is that 93, Dawn? The ash?
It could be, I know it's listed as a lot on Flag Road.
Yeah. On Lovers Lane or Flag Road?
No, it's on Flag Road because it's on it's actually on Flag Road, right at the end of Lovers Lane.
Yeah, it's right on the corner, so it might be a Flag Road tree.
Wanna leave?
But
Hi. Say bye to let them know.
Mimi, can I was just gonna say, can we share either things up the pictures? Would they be able to recognize the tree if I for the picture?
Bye, so they know.
Oh, yeah. Do you have
And
those pictures, Colleen?
I do.
I have them up too if you want.
Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So that's 103 Flag that I'm showing. Does that look familiar?
you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, it is an old.
No, I think that's down. Something closer to.
Oh, that's it is.
Like 49 or 51, maybe like.
It is number 108.
Okay.
That one?
Yep, there you go. That's the tree.
Oh, okay.
As you can see with that tree, there's significant damage at the base. The roots are embedded in the rocks there. It's leaning towards the lines. It's actually could take out the lines on Flag Road or Lovers Lane if it came down.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Freddie?
Hi there. This is Freddie Gillespie, 78 Southfield Road. I'm speaking as the chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission. And we discussed the tree hearing in overall, not specific trees in relationship to specifically towards all the trees on Woodland Road, but anywhere in town that are in front of a vacant lot would come into play. We are not, we didn't look at individual trees for whether or not they were healthy or not. We feel the planning board and the experts from National Grid, the tree arborist and DPW, are the experts to know whether the trees need to come down or not. So we're not questioning that. We're questioning, or making a recommendation. It's a recommendation from the Open Space Commission that any tree that is not in someone's front yard, like in the middle of, on a lawn or in front of a house directly, that they be cut to the barest minimum required so that if they fell, they won't hit a wire or cause damage to property or people's safety, a sidewalk, that sort of thing. And if you look on Woodland Road particularly, all the trees up to from the front of the town forest, it's not clear whether they're in the town forest or not. And all the trees from Kidder Lane, there's an open space parcel next to Kidder Lane to the north, and then all the way down in front of the houses in back of the Bay Path Lane and up to Sherman Ball's property and to Heavy's. That's all streams and wetlands. The homes are in back with lawns. So it's not going to impact anyone's sensibility of, aesthetics to leave as much of the tree remaining. And this is important for habitat value, for, if there's insects are required for birds to eat, for other animals, they provide nesting habitat. So this is all important habitat area, not just in the town forest and on Breakneck Hill, but in those other woodlands, which are, wetland frontage, or I don't know if they're actually, I couldn't get the wetland map to work, but you can see a stream going up on GIS. So we would recommend that you not take them down any lower than need be, because snags provide critical habitat. And we would recommend this on any lot anywhere in town where the lot itself is not like I said, a residential use, a yard, something that the property owner would object to. No one's going to notice, or I shouldn't say, most people are not going to notice if there's a tree that's a snag in the woods, like they would if it was in someone's, in front of their home and lawn. So we strongly recommend that you leave as much of the tree as possible, trim what's needed, take down the top if that's what's needed. I know people think it's unsightly, but in the woods, it's not going to matter. And the habitat value is critically important. And anyhow, we've done it at Breakneck Hill when we were taking some trees down, and we left a couple of trees there, and it is some people said, why are you leaving those trees? They're dead snags. And we go because of the habitat value. And I tell you, they are the hot spot for photographers and birders to go to see them, because they're attracted, they use them as a lookout, and they use them for the food they provide. So photographers come all the time, and the first place they go is to those snags. And that's a clue, but we know it for other reasons. So thank you.
Thank you. Any opinion on snags, National Grid?
As an arborist and been in the field for over 40 years, it's doesn't look, going out and trimming a tree so it's where you're taking more than 25% off, you're taking the chance of killing the tree. It's just not something I prefer to do. I mean, it's not, obviously it's still your choice on public or town land and stuff, but there is plenty of habitat in those woods. What people are calling forests in Massachusetts are overgrown fields at one time with, a lot of these trees are young, and there's a lot of them. I didn't go deep into the woods to take trees out. I was looking at stuff that's close to the road. So the other thing that has to be thought about is if we leave stumps up, high enough low enough so it won't affect the power lines, but still up higher, will they fall into the road? That's the other thing, and but again, it is the town's choice.
May I respond through the chair?
Sure.
Our recommendation is not to leave them tall enough so that they can fall into the road, but it's particularly on the town forest. Many of those trees are like many feet down below the level of the road. So if you cut off the top, they're not likely going to fall into the street. They're far back enough, I would think you could determine how much. And the point is, maybe you think there's a lot of habitat in those woods. We are losing habitat, faster than we can rebuild it. There's no plan for replanting any of these trees. So every single tree here has some value that will be missing when it's taken out. So leaving some of that value is important. And we don't mind if the trees die. Dead trees have value. They have habitat value. And if as long as it's not going to, like we said, not fall into the street or leave enough that it's going to hit the power lines or hit a sidewalk, we think leaving as much of the tree as possible on any tree that is not part of a residential yard frontage is the wise habitat value to do. Especially, you've got all these wetlands there. It's particularly important habitat value. So thank you.
Thank you.
Another
Betsy?
speaker? Hi, my name is Betsy McCarthy. I live at 18 Parkerville Road. I would just like to express my concern for some of the trees that have been tagged that look very much like they might be alive, but they are close to the power lines. And I would support your efforts to encourage those trees to be trimmed, not removed. I've lived here for 40 years. I am concerned with the aesthetic of our street, and I don't want it to look like a racetrack. So I certainly respect the opinions of the gentlemen who are arborists, but I do think there are several trees on this road that are alive, that do interfere with the power lines, that could benefit from being trimmed, not removed. Thank you.
I think I can respond to that. When we're doing an assessment on trees, one of the things we have to take into account is if there's large branches on a mature tree that need to be removed, and they're beyond a certain size, and it's going to affect the overall long-term health of that tree, we'd rather remove that tree, because by just removing branches adjacent to the power lines, in other words, one-siding a tree, mature tree, and leaving it there, all we're doing is creating a hazardous tree for the future. So we'd rather do the responsible thing and remove that tree up front, rather than trim all the branches off that are right next to the power line and leave that tree that's going to decline as a result of that heavy pruning. So that is part of the assessment process, is to see, okay, how much do we have to take off this tree, and will this tree be able to survive that? And if the answer is no, then we recommend the removal of that tree. We'd rather make that removal than overall than create a hazardous tree by pruning it back too far and affecting the health of it years down the road. So that is a decision that is made when they're doing the assessment of these trees. Just something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Luke?
Hi, Luke Fask, Manager of Vegetation Operations for National Grid. I apologize for being 10 minutes late. It's no fault of my own other than operator error trying to get on. Kind of embarrassing. But my sincere apologies about that. But I've been on since about 6:40. I was promoted as a panelist, probably closer to the 7 o'clock time frame or so. But I've heard a lot. I back up anything that Jeff and Don have said. 100% agree. As far as the open space comment or the ask, we will cut or not cut to whatever extent the town approves. We're happy to work with you on that. If there's something you're trying to achieve for a goal there and the DPW is cool with it, National Grid will certainly oblige and help with that. We're all for making habitat for open space. If there's any other questions, happy to take them.
Okay, thank you. Joyce?
Thanks. This is Joyce Greenleaf for North Street, also the Chair of Stewardship Committee. And Stewardship has not met to discuss these trees, but it is our responsibility to manage both Breakneck Hill Conservation Land on Breakneck Hill Road and the town forest, which of course is along Woodland Road. And our mission, our management plan, and our past practices have certainly prioritized conservation values and preserving habitat. So in light of that, I want to echo some of the earlier remarks that it would be our practice to leave snags for habitat and cut only what is necessary for public safety and to clear any lines that need to be cleared. And this would be especially true along the edges of the conservation land and the town forest, where those kind of snags do provide important habitat for a variety of birds and insects that we would be wishing to provide that habitat for. So that would be the remarks that I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Grant?
Hi there, Grant Farrington, 58 Flag Road. Thanks for taking my comments. Yeah, I just want to express significant concern with the amount of healthy or seemingly healthy trees that I've seen on the list. I walked all the trees over the last couple of days, and even I think we can dispute what the meaning of healthy is. Maybe some of them have some problems, but I think it's a fair characterization, at least in my opinion, that more than half of these trees are not an imminent threat. And that, if you were to wait, let's just say a year or two to see what actually happens, to see if they deteriorate any further, really show signs of failure and then take action. I just don't see that a lot of these trees are actually an urgent threat to, public safety or property. Based on my count, I don't have the numbers that I put together, but about 15 to 20 seem to me clear, dead or dying, significant rot, no problem. But there are a number of trees here that maybe, okay, aren't actually at that stage yet. Maybe they're in the early stages of it, but I don't see any problem with waiting on those and seeing what happens with them. I don't think that, some of these, especially larger trees, I think deserve special consideration. I would say over 25 inches, but there's a lot on this list over 30, some are even over 40. Just because a 40-inch tree starts to see some deterioration doesn't mean that we should cut it down now. I think to be honest with you, I think we've been too hasty to cut down many trees over the last few years. I think it'd be prudent to wait on some of these, take down the ones that are clearly dead or rotting, but many of these I just don't see as a threat. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to fundamentally change the character of our scenic roads in town. So I would object to the removal of the vast majority of the trees on this list. I sent you earlier the ones that I in support of removing. I think it's around 20 or so. I didn't count, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else, Colleen? Are we?
Nope, no more hands raised.
Okay. All right. So do we want to vote on the trees that are listed for trimming? And I can read them off. And if I have 8, 9, 36, 51, 82, 83, 90, 93, that was recommended as a trim from Chris and Cliff. 97, 101 also was recommended as a trim from Chris and Cliff. Same with 102, 106, and 109.
I have a slightly.
Could you read them again? I'm sorry.
So I am in agreement with the trims that Chris and Cliff recommended, so I'm put those in the trim list. So what I have is 8, 9, 36, 51, 82, 83, 90, 93, 97, 101, 102, 106, 109.
63 and 66 were also indicated as trim.
Oh, okay. Oh, so those trees, I had a question on some of those trees on Woodland. I had 60 through 68 and 71. They didn't look like they were in the right of way. They were way down the road and some of them look like they were in the wetlands, so I don't think the planning board has jurisdiction to approve anything with any of those trees that aren't public shade trees.
We've already vetted this list through the Conservation Commission. And
We've gone through it with Chris as well several times.
So all of those trees are all within the right of way? Because some of them are like 30 feet off the road. That's all part of the right of way? And in the wetlands, can we approve removing wetland trees without going through Concom?
Conservation we've already got a separate list that we've right, Don?
Yep.
Yeah,
We had a
we
hearing on that already.
Yeah, we already did a hearing with Conservation.
Do you have those tree numbers?
Yes.
They're not on this list right now. They were put on a separate list.
I do have the tree numbers, if you'd like them.
I would like them, Jeff.
Yep, I'm pulling it up. Uh, 59, 62, and 64.
So just 3 trees?
3 trees.
Mimi, are
Okay.
you speaking about the ones around those trees, the 55 through like 67, or that look
I'm
like
talking
town forest?
trees number 60 through 68, which are way down off the road. I was there today. And in the wetlands.
And they're across the street from power lines.
Oh,
Well, I don't know about that. I was just questioning whether they're in the right of way, and I don't think they're in the right of way.
Hi, Luke Fisk. I would defer to Chris Leroy. He was the town contact to confirm where the trees were in the town right away. So Chris, if you're still on, I don't have visibility on that, but are you able to confirm they're in the town right away?
I went through the list with Dawn. We went through looking at all of these, and that's when after that meeting I was able to go back and determine what was in the town right away, what was on Concom's jurisdiction, and which ones were in the town forest. So anything that wasn't under the scenic road jurisdiction should have been removed from this list, and I believe it was.
So just 3 trees?
Yep, that's what I got.
Which I had when we went and looked.
Sorry, I want to say too, I believe the trees that are in the town forest are under the jurisdiction of the tree warden. I think that might be those trees are in
Yeah.
the forest, so those are under the jurisdiction of the town tree warden, board of selectmen.
Do you want the list of I have the town forest list as well. Would you like that?
So, okay, so we're getting some clarity here, but they're not public shade trees and they're not under the jurisdiction of the planning board.
And those trees, I believe, are in the town forest.
72, 73, 74, 75, 76.
Those are.
So those trees aren't on this list. The ones I'm questioning are 60 through 68 and 71. And if those are town forest trees and under the jurisdiction of Chris, we just won't vote on them. Since
I was
Chris
going to
is
suggest
here.
that, Mimi, I mean, just to keep things moving, why don't we just set those aside?
Okay.
So I'll make the motion that the planning board approve the National Grid tree list following numbers: 8, 9, 36, 51, 82, 83, 90, 93, 97, 101, 102, 106, and 109.
Second,
For trimming,
for trimming.
to be trimmed.
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demuria, yes.
Brashear, yes.
So I guess that brings us to,
Wait, Chris has to vote on this too.
Agreed.
Okay,
so
all right.
I guess that brings us to the, back to where I was starting, which is trees number 1 through 7. I mean, I'm going to make the motion to approve the removal of trees number 1 through 7 on this plan.
Okay, if you want to, I have a whole list of trees that I'm okay with removing. I don't, and then if people
Oh.
aren't, we can take them off.
Okay.
Or, but
I'll
if you want to
retract.
do little pieces, that's fine.
No, please. I'll retract that motion. Go ahead, Mimi, please. I'm ready to write.
Okay, so I had, just to say, I had some of the pines, I had questions whether they could be trimmed, but after hearing from the arborists, I've changed my mind and moved them into the removal bucket. So I have oh, 1 through 7, 10 through 15, 17 through 22, 24 through 28, 29 through 35, 37, 39, 40, 42, 43, 45, 46, 49, 52 through 56, 77, 80, 81, 84, 86, 88, 89, 91, 99, 100, 105, 108, 110, 111, 113. There any disagreements with any of those?
Could you? I'm going to need to read that back to you, Mimi.
I
Okay.
have a completely different list, Mimi. I'm sorry.
I had the
My-
same.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yours is the
Mimi,
same as
ready?
Mimi's?
I'm going to try to read this back to you.
Okay,
1 through 7, 10 through 15, 17 through 22, 24 through 28, 29 through 35, 37, 39, 42, 43, 45, 46, 49, 52 through 56, 77, 80, 81, 84, 86, 88, 89, 91, 99, 100, 105, 108, 110, and 113.
so I had 111 and 40.
I missed 111.
And
Would it
40.
be a problem to do them individually? Because my list looks completely different than your list.
Well, Deb, out of the ones that were just read, which ones do you want to put a hold on and go over?
I have a list of ones that I agree need to be taken. That's
Well, right. So, but I mean, we're kind of working through the chair, and the chair just, ticked off a list of ones that And I'm getting the sense that there is consensus on the board to remove the trees that the chair just listed. So it might be more expeditious if you tell us which on those you want to review and
Okay.
exempt and
Well,
why.
if you read it chunk by chunk, I can tell you.
Sure.
which ones
How
I-
about we start with 1 through 7?
Okay, I agree with 3, 4, and 5 of that list.
So you question 1.
So 1 to me looks like it had vines. That's a Northborough Road. That to me didn't look like it was dead. It looked like the vines need to be clipped.
So let,
So,
so
yeah.
you
So
want to pull out number 1,
I'd like to pull out number 1
okay?
and number 2.
There isn't a 2.
There isn't.
Oh,
a
there's
2.
no 2. Okay. So I'm sorry, it was 1 through 7. Was that the first group then?
Yeah,
Without a 2?
without a 2.
Then I want to pull out 6 and 7.
Well, okay.
All right, so do we want to look at this list? Is anyone else in agreement with pulling out 1, 6, and 7?
I'm in agreement with just reviewing 6 and 7, but I was in agreement with removing 1.
Okay. So 6 and 7.
Mimi Joyce Greenleaf has her hand up again.
Okay, so we've moved, we've taken public comment and now we're voting.
So-
6. So 6 and 7.
My question there was just trimming. Could we trim them instead of removing completely?
Yeah,
can pull
I agree.
pictures.
So I wonder, so I have constantly dropping limbs down in my notes, and then 7, multiple crack cavities, vertical cracks, insect damage. I don't know if Chris or one of the arborists want to speak to 6 or 7, why they think they need to be removed.
At this point, we cannot change from the trim, change the removal to a trim from what we're proposing. So it's for you guys to decide. We cannot do anything other than either leave this tree as is and maintain it just through regular cycle maintenance, or we could take this tree down. That's our consensus from ourselves, from Chris, and from Cliff. So at this point, we cannot trim it any judicious way other than the way we've been normally maintaining it. We will either maintain it the way we have been, or we will remove the tree.
Mimi, can I say something?
Sure.
So when Mimi and I walked these trees as well, we had talked about seeing if they could be trimmed, but we agreed again with the arborist had written, and we saw a lot of the points that Cliff had taught us before. So I am in support as Mimi in removing these, especially where on top of the concerns, we had a lot of neighbors that came out and spoke to us as well that had a lot of concerns about these trees and trees coming down on their house and on their cars. So I am in support of removing 6 and 7.
Yeah, me too.
Do you want a motion to vote then, and make that a vote?
Yeah, sure. So let's knock out the first block there. So the motion is to approve the removal of trees numbered 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the National Grid Mitigation Plan.
Before I second, can I just make a comment? So
Sure.
I think you don't have a challenge on 1 through 5. I think you do on 6 and 7. So I think you might want to lump them for different purposes of
I
voting.
thought I did though. I
1,
just
3,
listed
4,
all of them.
5 as one vote, and 6 and 7 is a separate one. Or you're fine to do.
I think that we have the votes to carry 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 at this time.
Is
So
it simple? Is it simple majority?
Yes.
Okay. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, no.
Demirian, no.
Ratio, yes.
Roy, yes.
Okay, so 1 through 7. Check. The next block is 10 to 15.
Well, I have no questions about those. Does anybody else?
I mean, if you do it as a block, I'll end up voting no for them all, Mimi. I haven't had the chance to speak to the arborist, so my list is going to be different than your list. So I don't know if you want to do each individually or if you want to just vote on your block, but I'll have to be a no on all of them. And that's kind of unfortunate because we didn't get the opportunity to speak to the arborist. When I asked about this earlier, we said really the only thing you can do is vote no. And so I'm going to have to vote no.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make the motion for the planning board to approve the removal of trees 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on the National Grid mitigation plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demirian, no.
Ratio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
And that-
So, I mean, just to save time, Mimi, should I just list all the remaining trees that you had indicated before in one vote?
It's up to the board. Do you want to handle this in pieces?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's easier because that way, if somebody doesn't agree, at least they can have the chance to speak about that group if they need to.
Okay, so the next motion is the approval of the removal of trees numbered 17 through 22 on the National Grid mitigation plan.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, no.
Demirian, no.
Ratio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
Okay, the next motion is for the approval of the removal of trees number 24 through 28 on the National Grid mitigation plan.
Any questions or
It
discussion
needs
on
to be
those?
seconded.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demirian, no.
Ratio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
Okay, the next motion is for the approval of the removal of trees number 29 through 35 on the National Grid mitigation plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Maybe,
Seeing,
can I get a request? How did you feel about tree number 30? Sorry, if you could read that again, those numbers?
Sure. It was 29, 30, 31, 33, and 35 in that block.
Okay.
And the motion is for agreement of removal.
Okay.
Wait, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35.
I'll read them again. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35.
Okay. My only question was on 33, the oak tree. And again, this is not a pine, it's an oak, and hold on, I'm pulling it up.
Yeah,
It's a inch diameter, it's very large tree. It's a little bit set back. They've already done the cutting. So I just thought we could maintain as typical versus remove.
it's been actively burning on the line, I think.
There's a burn mark on it from the lines.
The power line setting it on fire actively.
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with the removal.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
So I'm gonna lump some of these together because there's a few individuals. Motion is for the approval of the removal of the following tree numbers per the National Grid Mitigation Plan: 37, 39, 40, and 42.
Mimi's original had 37 through 39. Do you want to include 38?
That's not what I had in my notes. Mimi, do you want to speak to that?
I have 38 in my can it be
Okay, I
saved
misread
list.
it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No,
oh,
you were right.
I was okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So back to the original motion, which is 37, 39, 40, 42.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
The next motion is for the approval of the removal of the following tree numbers per the National Grid Mitigation Plan. Numbers 43, 45, 46, and 49.
What was the first one, Jesse?
43, excuse me. So I'll read them again: 43, 45, 46, 49.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
The next motion is for the approval of the removal of the following trees numbered 52 through 56 per the National Grid Mitigation Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
And the next motion is for the removal of trees number 77, 80, 81, 84, 86, and 88 through the National Grid Mitigation Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
Leroy, yes.
motion is for the approval of the removal of trees numbered 89, 91, 99, 100, 105, 108, 110, and 111 per the National Grid Mitigation Plan.
There's only one left. Do you want to add 113 to that?
Can you repeat 105?
Yeah, sorry, Deb. I'm gonna read
Okay.
all of them again because I messed up the motion. It's numbers 89, 91, 99, 100, 105, 108, 110, 111, and 113.
Okay, can I ask about 105? I think that's one that we've heard several times, and I'd maybe like to hear what others think about that. That's a 36-inch oak.
Yeah, and it does work as a very good deterrent for slowing traffic. We did receive a neighborhood request from Mr. Rose. I'm in agreement that that should be removed from this list to remove the tree. I think we should maintain that.
I agree as well.
Um,
I'm trying to look at my notes and see what they say.
I can pull it up too if you want to see it.
Jesse, did your numbers go into the 100s and 10 and 11 down there, or?
yes, both of those were on the list.
So my notes say that there's a very large crack from the ground all the way up 20 feet.
Probably this.
Yeah, you can see it in the
So
picture.
I'm not an arborist, but I don't think cracks are a good sign. So maybe one of the, I wonder if a snag was left there, it would still be a traffic deterrent, but it wouldn't fall into the street.
I mean, this tree specifically was requested by a neighbor, and I don't think it's going to fall tomorrow. But there's some others also on that list that are quite large. That, again, not speaking to our arborist, we don't have the benefit of knowing. They look like they had vines. These are a 42-inch maple. That's
So
111.
what numbers are these?
Yeah, 111 and
109. No, that's a trim.
Yeah, the three at the bottom, 110, 111, and 113. I didn't think that they were dead, and especially since they're oaks and maples, I think they'd be easier to trim.
So it sounds like the consensus on the board is to set aside 105. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to back that one out. Why don't I withdraw that motion and try again with a different motion?
Jesse, just before you do that, so I had questions on 108 and 109 as well. I was going to ask Cliff if there was any way to, oh, sorry, 109 was a trim. I take that one back.
Yeah, we already did that.
Yeah.
So what I was going to do,
108?
Lisa,
Yeah,
what I was going to do is just go back to the earlier one. So the new motion would be to approve the removal of trees numbered 89, 91, 99, and 100 for the
Okay.
National Grid Mitigation Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes?
Lehan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brasher, yes.
Leroy, yes.
All right. I guess Mimi, there's some discussion now about 108, 110, 111, 113.
So 108 is the one we heard from a neighbor this evening on, requesting to remove.
Based on that, I withdraw my concern and the hold on that tree then. I didn't realize it was that tree.
Or was that the one on the corner of Lovers?
I'm showing it. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you. I don't have an issue with that. I withdraw my concern.
Okay.
All right, but the consensus seemed to be to set aside 105.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about 110?
I think we should remove it.
Yeah, that's a
Agreed.
remove to me.
Yep.
Okay, so what about 111?
I didn't think 111 was dead. I know that there's vines around it.
This one had branches that had fallen on the roof of the house. Mimi, do you remember this one?
Oh,
on board?
yes.
Yeah, that was Debbie why I'm gonna we talked actually we stayed and talked about this one for a while, but
I
there were
think-
branches in the
I think
yard.
there were dead branches on the roof when we were there.
There were.
I'm sold.
What about
How about 113?
Yeah, what about 113?
This is the one with the crack in it.
It looks like, well, there's a big cavity there. It looks like there's one on the other side too.
I'm fine with this one.
I mean, the thing about all this stuff is, I mean, we're talking about the infrastructure of the electrical system. I mean, that's why I'm very, kind of compliant when it comes to these things.
Can I ask
I
another
love the trees, but geez,
You like your electricity better?
I am afraid so.
Can I ask Lisa and Mimi, since you saw 111, is that not able to be trimmed? That's a 42-inch maple. That's Ward. That's the one on Ward you were mentioning. You talked to the homeowners.
Oh, yeah, they were huge limbs falling like constantly.
All around the tree. It wasn't just from one section, Deb, that if it could be trimmed.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable. I mean, we talked about this one because of the size. We probably stood there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was just when we had to make a final decision on it, there was a concern that it was already falling on these people's house. There were branches littering the yard. One good windstorm, I was afraid could take it down and into the house. And it is fairly close to the house. Marnie, can you go back to 111?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. So you can see, sorry, right there. You can see the how close it is to the house.
Yeah.
So that was really our concern on that. Mimi, I don't know what your notes say other than that, but
Yeah. Rotten in stem, unhealthy limbs over wires and falling on the house.
Yeah, I'm over this one. So can I go ahead and make the motion now? To approve the removal of trees numbered 108, 110, 111, and 113 per the National Grid Mitigation Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Miriam, no.
Russia, yes.
Leroy, yes.
So I think, Mimi, we're at the point now where we've approved all that we're going to approve and set aside the ones that we are not going to. Unless there's anything, unless any board member has any other things to bring up or.
Can I
And
ask
Chris, is there anything that we didn't approve that you feel, particularly moved to speak on at this point?
No, I have nothing more to add than what I originally had suggested.
Thank you.
At this point.
Can I ask a question, Mimi?
Sure.
So the trees on Woodland that are not in the front yard or you know, as Freddie talked about being able to snag them, is that the word? Are we, can we give National Grid the direction whether we support that on those areas that they can do that on, abutting the town forest and the conservation land and wetland, potentially? I just want to make sure that National Grid hears that, you know, we are supportive of that, if the board is supportive of that.
How tall is a snag? I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
If I can just add
Go ahead,
something.
Chris.
National Grid has always been great with working with us if something like that is something the town wants to do. The only question is we have to make sure that it's not a liability for motorists. You know, if it's not too close to the road, how tall we leave it. So that can be discussed after the fact before anything is done.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine, Chris. I just wanted to make sure that the takeaway was that, you know, the board was supportive of that. Thank you.
So I'm in support of that. Do we want to vote on that or just
Can I have a definition?
take a
of it first?
consensus? A definition of which?
How tall is it? Is it like a topped tree? Is it like 5 feet? Well, I actually don't know what a snag is.
Closer to 5 feet than a top tree. So it's just the part of the trunk just sticking up. It's not attractive, but it's good habitat.
Well,
Which
how
is
would the home, I mean, there are people who live on woodland. We're talking about right in
well,
front of-
so we're talking about on like the town forest or back off the road.
So I'm going to abstain from this because I don't really understand it, and it doesn't sound like the arborists completely are on board. So I'm just going to stay out of this one.
We're happy to leave whatever the town of Southborough is interested in leaving.
I mean, I think Chris knows, Jesse, what we're looking for. He's familiar with this, so we leave it up to Chris's discretion on these.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fine with that. I mean, Chris,
fine with
the
that.
takeaway is he knows, you know, what open space was suggesting and, you know, what we were looking to do. So he knows what we were doing. So I don't know if we need to give him any other direction than just that. I mean, I have faith that Chris will take care of this.
And Chris, do you want to vote on the, because we're already in a hearing and although they're not jurisdictional to the planning board, they're jurisdictional to you, those 60 through 68 and 71? Which I didn't think were in the right of way, but you said they were in town forest and they're under your jurisdiction.
So trees 60 through 68 and
71.
71, I am voting to remove, to agree
Okay.
with National Grid.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else?
So just so I'm clear, so anything that was not voted on tonight, that's going to be considered a refusal by the town of Southborough, correct?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
some of them were going to request trimming, but you said you wouldn't do that. So I guess it's just no.
Okay, no problem.
Just a
and-
process. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Marnie.
Just a process question is, to the point where we have heard that trees continue to cycle back, is there some way that we're keeping a record of trees that are on our lists that will come back? My guess is if it's on this list and we've said no this year, like let's say 105, 16, 23, 38, 41, all of these, they come back again. Do we have a running record of what comes back?
Well, in other words, whenever we're doing an assessment, it's a completely new assessment.
Okay.
Because the conditions have changed. Not that the tree, not to say it can't happen, but you know, could the tree improve? Possibly, very unlikely. But yeah, there's a completely new assessment done every time we do the circuit.
Okay.
So it'd be that we want the arborist has to look at everything with fresh eyes. And so that's why we're not just saying, okay, this was marked last time, let's automatically put it on the list, but no, if we come through again and do the circuit again, we would reassess everything and tree number, whatever, 108, whatever it is, might end up on the list again. And we'll say, yep, we think it's a hazard again. And then you guys can say, nope, we want to leave it. So, yep, that could possibly happen.
We also maintain a list based on all these tree hearings, any list we get from National Grid. Anything that's not addressed goes on to a list that we use as sort of a watch list. That could be tree hearings that I didn't get approval on prior, just town trees from residents, National Grid. So we do maintain a list.
Thanks, Chris. Maybe
Yeah.
one more.
Go
Just
ahead,
one more
Marty.
just a clarifying question for you, Jeff. How often do you do the circuits? Or is it dependent on power outage reports, or is it just cyclical, like every 3 years?
The hazard tree program, or this EVM program, is an as needed basis based on worst performing feeders. So this is considered one of the worst performing feeders based on reliability, and that's based on a number of statistics, not just purely number of outages, but it has to do a lot with quantity of people affected, and as well as duration, as well as there's a lot of other data that goes into that. So
Thank you.
that's how this was added to the list.
Mimi, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So just so my notes are clear, and again, I'm sure you have a better list. Can you just go over the trees that we did not do anything with? So basically there are no, because we didn't do anything. I just want to make sure that my list is complete. If you have them, if you don't, that's fine. I'll go back and go through, the votes, but I didn't know if it was something that was readily handy.
I was writing them down.
Oh, okay.
The ones that we didn't do?
Correct.
Oh, okay, perfect. That would be great. If
I might not have gotten them all, but the ones that we did not vote on were 16,
Yeah.
23, 38, 41, 44, 47, 48, 51, 57, 78, 108. No, we just did 108. Nope. And then I added those and I just didn't. So up to 78 is what I captured.
Okay.
And then that whole group in Woodland that I just didn't know which numbers they were.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask the chair a question?
Sure.
So I got to meet a lot of residents on the road to Parkerville especially, who were, concerned, they were concerned on both fronts of taking down the trees because they were nervous about their houses, but also that it would be changing the look of their neighborhood. And they've asked about the replanting program. So we know that that's dependent on some of the work I think that you guys might be doing in DPW, Chris, right? About a tree inventory. I was just wondering if we can put that back on the agendas and start, tracking that and maybe answering some questions from the public about replanting. Because I think when we started with the select board, the first 100 trees, which we thought we were going to catch up, we agreed that we would be doing a replacement. I don't know if we agreed one inch per 1 inch or something, but I'm assuming all these trees that somehow we're capturing these, and this will be part of a replacement. So I'm eager to get to that next step, and I think it's reliant on the tree inventory. Is that correct?
My understanding was we created that the fund to work together to use it to do a tree inventory study, do a study of where we could plant trees, because we really need to come up with a plan before we start replanting. So I think we just have to get back to the planning board and DPW working together on that.
Yeah.
We're all in, Chris.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks. Thank you.
Right.
Chris.
Luke?
Yep, thank you. National Grid will offer to help with some replantings. When we remove substantial amounts of trees in towns or cities, this is a substantial list. We're happy to do some replantings back. We don't have the capability to do a 1-for-1 or an inch for inch or anything like that. But we will work with Chris and see how we can help replant some trees.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't think there's anything else, is there?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Amelia, yes.
Russia, yes.
So
Roy?
thank you, Chris, Jeff, Don, Luke.
Thank you for all
Appreciate
your
it.
time. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Happy
Yep.
holidays.
Yes,
Yeah,
happy
happy
holidays.
holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Bye now.